A Canadian outdoors expert says two teenagers on the run in remote Manitoba might be eaten alive before police finally track them down. Cam McLeod, who's 19, and Bryer Schmegelsky, 18, are suspected of killing Australian Lucas Fowler and American China Deese on a remote highway. Police have also charged them for the murder of botanist Leonard Dyke, that they say happened 4 days later. Now, they've been spotted several times since, but despite a coordinated manhunt, the two are still on the run. David Arama is known as the survivor guy with 40 years' experience in the wilderness. He says there's a good chance the teenagers are already dead.
It's a very, very hostile environment. The mosquitoes and deer flies and other insects are amongst the most relentless on the planet. They literally eat you alive. And the weather conditions up there, we often joke in that part of Manitoba, similar to northern Ontario, actually, where I run programs sometimes. It's very hostile. The weather, you might get 1 or 2 months of so-called summer, and that summer, this time of the year, could be stormy, rainy, cold at night, and very, very miserable. So these guys are up against a lot, because to survive in that wilderness, if it was a search and rescue for someone who's just typically lost, the search and rescue would give them 3 to 7 days to be alive. Probably not much more. It's usually a body bag recovery. And in my experience, having led people for up to 9-10 days, which is about what they're out there now, is that you would have lost 20 to 40 pounds of your body weight by now.
Wow.
Just from exerting so many calories fighting off the insects and the weather.
So what are the odds, David, that these two are going to succumb to the elements and the wildlife before the police can find them?
Well, my thinking is there's a few different scenarios that are going on here. Number one, are they actually lost out there in that type of swampy, miserable wilderness with very little gear, surviving with just the clothes on their back? If they are, they're either dead already or they're going to be real soon. Or they were smart enough to have a lot of advanced camping gear, minus 20 sleeping bags, tents, and everything else. That's entirely possible. I kind of doubt it, but you never know because of the age of the two guys. They're just young teenagers, I guess. And but I think the most likely, I hate to say it, is they're probably holed up in a cottage or cabin or RV trailer or someplace. But either way, I don't think it's going to end in a nice way. If they are stuck out there in the wilderness right now, they can't even have a fire, and because with a fire, you'd normally warm yourself up and boil water to purify it so you don't get, bacteria and all kinds of parasites. And with a fire, they would have a good chance. But without a fire, it would be in serious trouble, because search and rescue now, they use ultraviolet, infrared, FLIR goggles and canine dog teams, and everything would see a fire and smoke. So I'm a little skeptical that they're actually hiding out in the wilderness surviving. Because that particular wilderness, I can tell you with my experience, even someone who's seasoned and experienced would not want to be lost out there with, without any gear.
Yeah, and it seems so remote. We've seen the maps and the images from the air, but then there's been these reports of sightings in these towns, so they can't really be that far from civilization.
No, they're probably around there somewhere, unless they manage to hitchhike away somehow. Or, commandeer a vehicle and, that kind of thing. But, no, they're probably somewhere around. And like I said, I think this is going to end pretty soon.
If they were to ask you advice, David, on what they should do, what would you say?
Turn themselves in. Now, on behalf of 38 million Canadians, we're all embarrassed by these guys and what happened to these poor people. It's sickening. It's unfortunate it happens around the world now everywhere, but still, I would say they got to turn themselves in.
That's Canada's survivor guy, David Arama, with about 40 years in the wilderness, giving us the update, at least an idea of what might be happening there. He reckons they might be eaten alive by bugs before police find them, those two teens at large.